And if you have any questions during the presentation, please use the raise your hand button that you can find at the controls at MS Teams. If you don't find it, you can type your question also in chat. And in the second half hour, we will open the floor for questions and discussion. And well, I'll leave it up to Mario if he wants to make some pauses in the first half an hour. So Mario, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, thanks, Evgeny. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for inviting me here. My name is Mario Sosa. As Evgeny mentioned, I'm a PhD candidate at the Keen Center for Digital Innovation, the School of Business and Economics of the Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam. Sorry for repeating that, but I was part of my presentation. Then just let me click. Yes, so the agenda for today, of course, I was going to present Omai. Perhaps that's not necessary anymore. Thanks, Evgeny. I'm going to present a little bit more of the group, the research group that I'm in at the Vrije Universiteit, and also present to you a little bit of my research, which is related, as you might notice, with artificial intelligence and data scientists. In the end, we also can have a Q&A session. You can please let me know all your feedback and also your doubts and questions. As I mentioned to you before, my name is Mario Sosa. Here I am. I am a PhD candidate at the Keen Center for Digital Innovation for the third time. Funny thing, I graduated from the Industrial Design Engineering faculty of the TU Delft last year. Yes, still last year. Yeah, last year. My graduation thesis is called Design of an Ethical Toolkit for the Development of Artificial Intelligence Applications. I graduated from the Master of Strategic Product Design. Important thing to mention, I am doing my PhD in the AI Know project, which is a project that was funded by a now open competition national grant that was earned by Keen Group. The idea of this project is to answer the question, what is the impact of artificial intelligence in knowledge work, which I'm going to cover a little bit later in the presentation. But first, let me introduce Keen. Well, she's not Keen. She's my promoter. The Keen Center for Digital Innovation is led by my promoter, Marlene Huisman. We are a research group that studies digital innovation. We take 3 different areas. For example, the organization and digital innovation, future work, and also has to do with management of digital transformation. Within that group, I belong to a sub-research group. I know it's kind of funny, what is called AI at Work, which are these PhDs and postdocs and everyone related to artificial intelligence in a work setting. What we do is to try to understand how these practices are changing with the introduction of, these work practices. So work practices are changing with the introduction of data-driven technologies, which I call AI from now on. I'm sorry, I know it's a technical term, but I will use AI as an umbrella term. Sorry, no machine learning, deep learning specific, just umbrella term. Our methods involve doing ethnographic studies, quite long ethnographic studies to gain insights into what are the changes that organizations have with these technologies over time. We're currently investigating different cases where these technologies are introduced into different work and organization. For example, police in the Netherlands, also several hospitals in the Netherlands as well, human resources of multinational companies. In my case, also I'm gonna do ethnographic research in an organization that is they do matching job. Well, there's a consultancy for matching job or job matching. I think it's called something like that. So, and that's why I'm going to talk about my research, which is still research in progress. I'm going to try to answer the question, what is the impact of artificial intelligence in knowledge work? In my case, specifically, I'm going to focus on data scientists. But before going into that, I'm going to present you my personal roadmap of PhD, because I think that this is a good opportunity to get feedback from it. Okay, I'm finishing my first year. So one of my deliverables that I got from this first year of PhD is a conference paper, which has been accepted. I'm going to talk about that later. During the second year, I'm expecting to start with my ethnographic study of organization, which I'm going to call for this presentation Matching Co, which is a pseudonym. Of course, it's confidentiality. We have to respect that. The third year, of course, nobody knows what happens in the third year, is entering the unknown. Perhaps some of you might relate. And the fourth year, of course, you start entering into panic because you need to finish your PhD. For the sake of this presentation, I will focus on the paper. I think that it's a good opportunity, as I told you, to present you my research, what I have been working on, and I would like to have your feedback. Perhaps you can give me some suggestions. You can help me think along this topic. And yeah, I'm going to present you my paper, which is titled Data Science as Digital Work from Critique to Reflective Practice. It's a short paper, research in progress paper. This paper has already been accepted at IFIB Joint Working Conference 2020, which is called The Future of Digital Work, the Challenge of Inequality. So we held in a month, in December 10th and 11th. Of course, it's going to be online due to the current situation. Yes, so some of the, I'm going to begin. The research context that I have, the context of my research starts regarding these new professions that are emerging in organizations due to AI. It might be a little bit like obvious that they are now there, present, data scientists, data engineer, machine learning engineers, but they weren't there before. And that this is something that has only happened with artificial intelligence, not even with, for example, big data or technologies before that. There's a big fuss around what is the influence of artificial intelligence. But most of the debate around that is either too high level, so AI will automate everything, will automate all of our jobs, or AI will control us, or these companies will control us, as this is too black and white. For example, in the discourse of the surveillance capitalism concept. And what I notice is there's still not a clear understanding of the practices of these data professionals. So we're assuming too much. We just get into the high level of what the technology can do, but we're not focusing on the people that are actually, we're not focusing on the people that are actually doing the technology. We are also focusing on the people that are getting affected, but not on the data scientists, for example. They might be affected as well. And you might be wondering, well, why this is important. Well, first, these professionals are in charge of building these systems, right? With all that this implies, the values, the ethics, the epistemologies, all these things that come in from these professionals to the systems, and they might be reflected on them, as you can see in this cartoon. And also, they are gaining influence in organizations thanks to this offer of objective rationality, which is quite attractive for companies and managers. Of course, this kind of race to power has been criticized, most recently in popular media with the social dilemma, but also in research where there's a suggestion of the emergence of knowledge inequalities, which we define these as this advantageous position that data science itself, this field has in organizations because of this rationality speech. There are other data science critiques that come from the literature for the critical data scholarship or literature that they also cannot connotate these advantages and also some of their consequences. I can present to you now a table of what I did, a compilation of all these critiques. There are some certain topics, certain important names, for example, Reeves and Shoshana Zuboff, who is like the author of the book, The Age of Surveillance Capitalism. Some of the critiques go around the domain agnosticity of data science, how it's just go there absorbing knowledge without actually giving something back, which is related to these prospecting practices. Also related to more social high-level perspective, this data extractivism concept and data colonialism concept, in which these authors argue that these companies just get our data as colonize our everyday life and we don't get anything in exchange. So what I realized when we problematize this problem is that these critiques are actually quite high level. They get these inequalities on an abstract level, no empirics related. So little is known about what is the actual data science practices, if they are aligned with how they are being portrayed. If they understand what are the data scientists doing or the AI creators doing. So that's why I came up with this research question with preliminary, which says, how does the practice of data scientists compare with the critiques about data science or data science? For a research setup is pretty standard. I made it as the first stage, the research in progress between May and July. Due to the current coronavirus thing, I had to do semi-structured interviews. And I didn't have the opportunity to do ethnographic research due to the situation. But I did several semi-structured interviews with data-related experts from a lot of organizations, different companies. I used snowball sampling, and it's important to mention that I am going to do the ethnographic research, which should come actually from tomorrow. I'm going to have a meeting with this company. After that, I made just qualitative analysis using this software called Atlas TI, quite something that people from design is used to. I'm going to present you some of my preliminary insights. Well, it seems that some interviewees showed that there's this start acknowledging the limitations of representing the world solely with data. So there is an uncertainty there. There is not only perfect rationality perspective. There is something that they cannot account for. I like this example of a quote that I got from an interviewee when he mentioned that we can never model all the information in the world in a computer algorithm. So it doesn't matter how do you do it. There is something always there in the real world that doesn't let you get to that perfect perspective of perfect rationality. Another important insight that I got, is that contrary to what is criticized, for example, in Reeves or Slota and Company, Zuboff as well, data science it seems to engage in knowledge sharing and exchanging practices. They do not only get other discipline knowledge just to apply data science to it and make artificial intelligence systems with it, but they also share their knowledge of data science and share their knowledge what they got through communities of practice and chapters in their organizations, and also through these type of communities outside of the organization, which is quite interesting. Another insight that we got is that there is this emergence of the analytics translator role, which is a popular role nowadays. You can see this used a lot in Silicon Valley. This is a similar result of Wardenberg and others. It's a colleague of mine that regarding the information officer. So she did an ethnographic study in the Dutch police. They are trying to apply a predictive crime tool. And in the end, the police needed to create this information officer role in order to translate the results that they have in this algorithm to the officers on duty. This what suggests that the data science process, the artificial intelligence process, is not as straightforward as thought. So it requires, in a way, translation, something that we get. And finally, we got some concerns about data science being automated and commoditized. So tools such as AutoML, data scientists seem to be aware of these tools, and they seem to be of the, let's say, quoting, danger that they represent to their profession, because it might get commoditized in the end, and then they won't get any further in the future. They even talk about changing of profession to go more to applied role, machine learning engineer, for example, data engineer, something that is really required and not can be commoditized. And what this suggests is that this profession is not secure as sometimes is portrayed in the literature or in popular media. So from my final remarks, let's say a discussion of my paper. So our insights suggest that these data sciences seem to be reflective of their own practices, right? So they are not just there by themselves in a company, just doing artificial intelligence, being the mean guy, being the evil guy or girl, or being the evil people that are creating this AI to automate us all. And contrary to what is criticized, they appear to be vulnerable as other professions, and also to rely on other professions more than we think. So it is not this closed group of people that is rising in power without actually having to communicate and having to rely on another profession. So yeah, what's next in my research? You might be wondering. As I told you, I'm going to present this paper to the IFIPWC 2020 conference next month, and I'm going to start with the ethnographic study of the organization, Machinko, which is a recruitment organization. And I'm going to do that for the next year and a half. Of course, COVID allows face-to-face, because it is important to get legitimacy in our results to get this ethnographic study Otherwise, it might be just quite superficial. Yeah, this company is a recruitment organization that's currently developing machine learning algorithms to optimize their job matching process. They have a team of data scientists there, a chapter of data scientists there, and they seem really interested in the study. Just before we pass to the questions, just a small commercial break. This is the upcoming new book. Unfortunately, it's only in Dutch, from some of my colleagues and my promoter, of course, from Lauren Wardenberg, Marlene Husman, and Marloes Achtenberg. This is a compilation of these ethnographic studies, some of the ethnographic studies that have been done with this AI context in hand. So if you're interested in, and of course you speak Dutch, in learning more about how you can manage artificial intelligence in practice, you can get the book. It's going to be released on the 24th of November. And I think that we're working right now into their English version for those who don't know Dutch and are interested in the topic. And that's it. I think that we can just start with the Q&A now.
Mario, thanks very much for this part. So let me see here. Anybody who has questions, please click the hand button. Let's see. Luciano, yeah, please go ahead.
Nice. Thanks, Mario, for the presentation. I was thinking about what you said about the rationality assumption there, and I have like two questions connect to this. Okay. One is like, I think if I understood correctly, so the data science they see as or at the market they see like as an advantage for themselves this to have this rationality. And for this I ask you, one, do they also consider these when they are coding? They are also assume that their code is also completely rational in a way of saying. And another thing is that it connects a little bit to the concerns of becoming increasingly automated that you mentioned that. Would that mean that they should be less rational in a sense, but more focused, like instead of they have to let go of their own current advantage? Would that mean something in that direction? What do you think?
Well, first, thanks for that question. The first one is, well, all of the questions are great questions. Yeah, regarding the first one, I think that's what we want to find. that's what we want to go. That's what we need to do at an ethnography study. I currently do not know the answer to the first one, so I don't know if they are actually thinking about that in rationality. The only thing that we know is we have some other examples in the literature, but they have not been focusing on that part of data scientists themselves. For example, there are a lot of examples in scientists, normal scientists, engineers, but not in data scientists. That's why I'm doing this research. So it's quite new. So okay, that was the first one. The second one was yes. So the point of this rationality is not about that is not an advantage, but I think that we are. I mean, at least with the paper, what we're trying to do is to defend the idea of the criticism that data science has. Like these, documentaries on Netflix and everything saying like that technology sucks. We should just get rid of it, and we got to get their ethics. Which, of course, that's right. But we think that these type of postures are too extreme, and they don't cover everything. So we think that the perspective of the data scientists regarding their rationality, it's something that is innate in them. It comes perhaps from their institution, from how they were educated, of course. But we think that if we can improve or we can make them, we can understand them. We can understand if they believe this rationality gives them an advantage, and they truly do while they are coding. And we can kind of like understand that we can just produce something in order to help everybody align the best that we can, in a way. So you can manage data scientists and their rationality as an advantage without getting into these problems that I mentioned before, the ethical problems, the epistemology, all that. So yes, I hope that I have answered that part of the question. Or
yeah, Yeah, I did, and I'm looking forward to see what you're gonna find in your ethnographic studies. Cool. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks, Oceano. Roel?
Hi, Mario. Thank you for your presentation. It's really fascinating to have you with us today. And I do really appreciate the question that you've posed. So how do data science practices kind of align, or how do they relate to the critiques of it? And when I'm thinking of the critiques that some of them that you've also listed, it's not just about, and this is one of the things you see a lot, that a lot of critiques go towards the data scientists and what their role is, right? But they are, of course, oftentimes in organizations where there's other stakeholders, other decision makers, that sometimes even force them to do things that they don't have any agency over. And so my question to you is is really the data scientist your object of study? And to what extent is your object of study also like looking at these actual power structures and power relationships? And the other thing is like the other object you could imagine is like, what are the actual normative choices and decisions and trade-offs that are being made, and the the implications of those. So you could track people, you could track power relationships and power structures, or you could track actual implications. And it's PhD is a short time, but I kind of wanted to challenge you, or to hear how you think about scoping your study at this point.
Yes. So yeah, the main interest is to know more about data scientists, mostly because there is not a complete account of them. So we don't know what they do actually, because it seems that it's still an emerging occupation, right? I mean, 20 years ago was quite really new. The first time the term was coined was around 2012, I think, or 2010. So they are recent, but they haven't been studied yet completely, right? And they're involved, as you mentioned, in this structure from the data science team to the biggest hierarchies of management. And the idea is to look out for that relationship as well. But of course, I have only just 4 years to do that. And well, now I just learned the first one, so I only have 3 years to do that, and perhaps also to write my dissertation. But yes, I am considering myself, like personally, going and taking more like a critical stance, a critical lens, to check, of course, if these data scientists are the ones that are making decisions or not. That's why these type of studies are so important, because we're getting these assumptions of data scientists are either evil or not evil, but we don't know what they're doing, or if the managers are the ones that they are taking decisions, and how their practices change, how these decisions change the data scientists' practices when they realize that the world is not as objective. Let's say the world cannot be modeled with data that they gather. Do they need more data? What is going on there? So yeah, you're right. I'm planning to do that, to go more into that in detail. I won't be able to do that. Of course, I need a lifetime, perhaps. But if I could get a nice researcher job after this, perhaps I could just keep studying that. But yes, I'm looking out for that. And what we have checked until now is that, as we mentioned with this analytic translator role, they are quite disconnected there's disconnection between management and data scientists. They don't speak the same language, although they want to. So it's really weird, because everybody wants to collaborate, everybody wants to make this AI, but they don't know how to speak to each other. So that's something really interesting, and we can just also like test that out with our ethnographic study to check if that's the case, or it is something else.
Yeah.
But we are on track on that.
Yeah, maybe to give you an example, my own experience as a data scientist, this was in Silicon Valley, and this is where companies, they tend to, I often use the phrase that, fake it till you make it. So like you have, commercial people, marketing people, the CEO going out to customers and selling certain technologies, and then the data scientists, they get the ones that I worked with for a summer, they got like something to build that wasn't, the requirements were just like not possible, right? But they didn't have much power, and they were sent into like a conference room again and again, and the CEO was saying, your accuracy numbers have to go up because I promised them, the customer, that the accuracy would be more than 90%, and they were like 67% or something. But like, if you just look at the data, if you just look at the possible data collection they could do, they were never going to get there. And I kind of had to help them through doing more like rigorous statistical analysis that, like, look, it's not going to work. And there I've seen kind of a progression where data science actually got some more input at the executive level, just to to make sure that when they go out and they promise things to customers, that they don't overpromise. So it might also be interesting for you to kind of in addition to like a longitudinal studies, maybe to ask different companies about how they have struggled in the past and how they've kind of adjusted their organizational structure, the processes as a result. Because I think what I ran into is probably not it's not an anomaly. So that's probably a pretty common experience from the last, let's say, 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what we are experiencing and observing as well. That's why we're doing this research, because if you look at these critiques, it's more like data scientists are super powerful and artificial intelligence is everything, and then they are the ones that understand it, so they are the ones that are not getting their jobs automated, so you should be a data scientist or data engineer or machine learning engineer. And what you're observing, as you mentioned, is that that's not the case, but you need to report it in a way, right? You need to make people notice that there is something going on there, and then that you can actually make it solve it. We were discussing about, as you mentioned, perhaps doing a couple of ethnographic studies instead of only just one with another company, different setting, different also field. Because if you think about it, there's also these organizations that are technological organizations, like technology. They do technology, and there are these normal companies, organizations, that they just apply a little bit of technology into their normal business model. So those are quite some differences. The one that I am doing the ethnography model is more a normal organization, regular organization that is trying to apply data science and implement artificial intelligence in that. So I'm also wondering if it will be, of course, as you mentioned, a good idea to go there, to go to other companies to see how this has happened, right? Even though it's the same company or not. But yes, you're right. I mean, that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm planning to do, to look for the truth, or well, not the truth, but what I can observe about what is happening and why these critiques are so pushy towards they are so great when they are not. So that's what I'm trying to do, because we don't have a clear image, clear picture of who is these people behind the artificial intelligence.
Yeah, let me just say that I have tremendous respect for ethnographic scholars who go and do this work for longer times, and I've experienced myself, not necessarily in Delft, but in like engineering spaces I've been in, that people don't quickly like realize or like acknowledge the value as I would like them to. And I think it could really be very valuable knowledge that can feed back into the actual way, like you said, like the way that we educate engineers, data scientists, statisticians. So thanks for taking on this challenge.
Yeah, well, thank you for your questions. Like made me think. Thanks.
Thanks, Raul. So while please, while others, think if you would like to ask any additional questions and raise your hand. So while I wait for you to raise your hand, I will ask a question. I'm curious, Mario. So my question is somewhere, I think, kind of on the crossroads of the objective rationality point and what you said about the awareness of data scientists of limitations of data modeling of the world. So a lot of the techniques used in data science these days, they consist of correlation-based modeling, right? Correlations between inputs and outputs. But that process of modeling, it's very different from a scientific process in which we make clear assumptions about the world around us, and we have a debate about the causality that is at the heart, right? As we know, correlation and causality are not the same.
Yeah.
And So I'm curious from what you have seen so far, or perhaps maybe from things that you are planning to investigate in your research. Like, is there something that has come up? Is there something that you are planning to touch upon? Like, are data scientists aware of what are the implications of that? Because especially, I think, kind of my motivation for asking this, just to be clear, is that in many of the socio-ethical issues that we observe with how artificial intelligence is applied, this is one of the things that really come up, because we see how certain judgments are made based on recommendations that AI systems do, that when you start opening the hood and you ask, well, hang on, okay, I see that there's a correlation in data, but from a causal point of view, is this epistemologically, like, does it make sense to make such an inference? So yeah, I'm curious to hear what you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for your question, Jenny. It's a really nice question. I don't know if I will touch it in the future, but I made kind of like a mini research before getting into literature review, and what we realized is that you're right. This objectivity ideas inside the development of artificial intelligence that come from the statistical correlation can be also involved in like general terms. When artificial intelligence first came up, it was more like a symbolic approach, right? Try to imitate the world completely. No, only statistical correlations were not enough. But then machine learning came, and then from machine learning, there was also this branch of, okay, because the original objective of machine learning was to do the same symbolic artificial intelligence, but with a different approach. But then it came this statistical approach, and then the statistical approach just got spread towards everyone. So what we realized is that the problem around still there. It doesn't matter if it's AI symbolic or if AI machine learning, but because for us, the main factor of this objectivity is that knowledge is perceived as something that can be accumulated. So as you mentioned, you can say like, oh, but this correlation doesn't make sense, right? And that part of doesn't make sense is related to knowledge when it is a process. Knowledge in the philosophical perspective, it could be either something that you can accumulate, but also a process of interaction between people. You share it, you move it around, and that's the thing that we believe that is missing in artificial intelligence and its research. They are so focused on the idea of getting all this knowledge that you can accumulate, that instead of the hard part, which is focusing on the symbolic part, the expert systems. And we are, at least I understand why is the reason of that. Making symbolic artificial intelligence is way harder, not as efficient as doing machine learning. But there are other ways of doing artificial intelligence that, for example, a hybrid perspective. They are working at the VU with this hybrid perspective of joining machine learning with expert systems or symbolic artificial intelligence. But the point that we find it fascinating is this perception of knowledge as can be accumulated, or not even accumulated, because it's not a symbolic perspective anymore, but inferred from incomplete data. Let's say that there is not this uncertainty taken into consideration. So we believe that that's kind of like the issue with machine learning, the uncertainty part. 80% is enough, but if you think about knowledge as a process, 80% of you spreading knowledge is not the same. So there is still an uncertainty part that is hard to take into consideration. And also this uncertainty rises up if you included the biased socio-ethical part or other things that might happen, the poor explainability. So you need to get over trade-offs if you're going to push the technology. But what we found is that data scientists seem to be aware that this is happening, aware that perhaps their definitions of knowledge are not complete. It's not that they're wrong. It's just simply it's not the whole picture, and that this is perhaps they are starting to reflect upon if this is the right way, or as you mentioned, this correlation doesn't make any sense. But also we have, So also we have this consideration, the management perspective. Where are they positioned in the company? So a lot of factors there. But what I'm trying to focus in is in that perspective that they have, and how they are actually starting to realize that everything is not as beautiful as put it like in a beautiful correlation of more than 0.05 or.
And then following up, and you mentioned now the management. So now let me flip it to the perspective of the other people in the organization surrounding the data scientists. So you're saying that data scientists begin to acknowledge this more, this issue, of indeed the knowledge, how it's constructed, and the correlation versus causality, and but what about the management, the people around the data scientists? So because one of the things that we observe, there is the narrative, right? I think I've heard Marlene say that herself in one in a workshop that she's done, kind of the narrative of AI knows better, right? Because there is this common narrative around us in the world that we live that, well, because AI is quantitative, because it's automatic, people get the perception, or it's often marketed, sometimes even aggressively kind of marketed as, well, this is objective and, great. What do you see from the side of the people surrounding the data scientists, again, in the context of this topic?
What we see is that I think they need to perform in their organizations, and that's why they are going to do whatever it takes to perform, I guess. But in the literature of management, you can find that managers are aware of different types of let's say, knowledge in a way. So managers are reflective in themselves. They are always changing. That's why they change their management styles. But at the same time, you are right. We are looking at kind of like a process that is incomplete, even between managers and data scientists. So there's this knowledge perspective of they are not interacting correctly because they want to, but they don't know how to, right? So, and even we got sold the idea that AI is so great. Data scientists know that there are some cases in which AI won't solve their problems, but they don't know how to communicate this. One of the, as mentioned in the last question, one of the things that they might do is just rise in the hierarchy of the company so they can have their decisions heard. But at the same time, you realize that this might also cause some problems. Not the idea that they rise into the hierarchy, but the idea that they are not able to communicate properly with this management section about what are the capabilities. So in the end, these managers accept the technology which fails, and then they are not performing correctly because of this problem. So it's a problem that involves everyone in the organization, but we want to go there and to reveal the truth. To what extent does it affect? Who is this? That the people that are more affected with this, and what are their practices? What is happening around there? In my perspective, I believe that this is complete. There's a wall between two of them, and for what I got in the interviews, the data scientists they are willing to share, even some managers. So everyone is willing to create the perfect product, to do everything for the company. But again, still this interference between each other of knowledge and their concepts and epistemologies in which things go around. And what I'm trying to do is to find is how this changes the data scientists' perspective and practices, because they might have started this data science profession as they are superior because we are objective, but little by little they have realized that perhaps they are not as objective, or perhaps there's a problem. They have been taken by granted, or they have been exaggerated their own results just for the sake of the company. And that's what we have been observing if you go too deep into these organizations. And that's what I want to study in my PhD, how this hype of AI has changed their own practice. And with this, I expect that we can create a little something to help them go through the company and avoid these problems, because it affects everyone, even them or the managers, if something goes wrong because of this problem.
Yeah, and I think this is very, very valuable knowledge to accumulate in order to, like, in terms of the kind of questions, for example, that we at AI Tech and at TU Delft that often we deal with in terms of design, which you very well know, of course, better than me, that to understand how can we steer things towards the kind of future that we want to see. It's so important to understand the existing practices in order that we know how to enter the conversation to be able to steer things effectively. Yeah. Let me see. Does anybody else have some additional questions? No hands so far. I can ask probably some more questions.
I mean, I can tell you related to what you mentioned about going there, because we need to understand it. The way that I see it is that going through the academia from a technical perspective, because I have a background in mechanical engineering, following through design, and then ended up in social sciences, I think that I can just check out these problems firsthand by myself, and I can see a difference in perspective. And I think that, as you mentioned, it's really important to understand the why of the problem before starting to work on the how to solve it, right? Otherwise, it's just a technical problem of I'm just trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist. That just, I don't know why this happens, but I'm just applying AI to everything that I know, because of course we are engineers in a way. You are curious to create things, to manage all these things. But as you mentioned, this is really important as a like preface of the applied research of how do you solve it once you understand these practices and how these practices have changed in the certain amount of time. Yes.
Yeah, and let me see. And so, an additional question. You mentioned that I think at one of your slides you said so data scientists might not be as secure as portrayed. So can you elaborate on that? I mean, I think you've touched upon this, but can you talk about more about that point?
Yeah. I mean, I can go back to that one. Yeah. Yeah. So the point is that we always have this narrative, this aggressive narrative of you should be a data scientist or machine learning engineer or something related to the AI, because that's the future of work. And we have always had that, even though before in the past, when you have IT professionals and the internet and everybody's going to be automated, it's still going and going. But the point here is that what happens when you automate the automators, right? So when they feel threatened because they are disappearing. And that's also important to acknowledge, because they might behave in a different way. They might change their practices in order to not get extincted. So that's something interesting that we would like to go further, because it is not as secure as it was portrayed. So you always go to the tech world, you're never going to get your job taken by robots because you are the ones that are making robots and stuff. But then you realize that that's not the case, specifically for at least the data science practice. Although we believe, of course, it might be the case if you don't use tools like AutoML and other smart tools for making data science work. Yeah, again, this is similar to this phenomena of web developers and what happened with website creators, Wix and all these other pages that they created there. So the web developers became a little bit redundant, but in the end, it just changed a little bit their job, and that's that they switch to something different to give a better experience, rather than only just the same, just securing servers and making sure that the page was online all the time and available and accessible. So that's what I meant with this. Is just like things are getting automated and commoditized, so they're feeling threatened, and they kind of like they have assumed that happened. They have reflected, or at least the data scientists that I spoke to, they understand that, and some of them are thinking about changing from data science to another field. Some of machine learning engineers, they are planning to stay in the machine learning engineer field and not going back to the data science, because they also believe that it's going to change a little bit. I even have an interesting response from one of my interviewees. He believes that the data scientists will re-encounter their way through software development, because they have been treated as a shiny little new object. You know, PhDs being hired in organizations, they are really important, but in the future they might get into the same level as any software development occupation and profession. And that's what some of them, they fear that, some of them, they just accepted that, but there are some of their perspectives and insights. And it's interesting to know how this changes over time.
Yeah. And so let me ask something that is kind of, it kind of goes beyond the scope of what you talk about here, but you have an interesting journey and experience yourself. As you mentioned, you've in terms of the environments in which you've studied and worked, you had engineering, you had design, now social science. When you think about the way we educate, how our education works these days, how we educate AI professionals, let me put it like this, broadly kind of, what do you think, what kind of set of multidisciplinary knowledge should young professionals that graduate these days, who will mainly focus on technical things, but what kind of multidisciplinary knowledge do you think these technical professionals should have in order to work effectively in the real world?
Yeah, I don't want to I don't want to sound like a bit exaggerated, but I think that a design education will work. Design is actually that. I noticed in my transition to the engineering world to these organizations, you just listen to their problems, what these data scientists are experiencing, and there are so many gaps that designers can fill in there. Like absolutely, like I think that design education in any part of any program around the world in computer science, something like that, I believe that, of course, ethics of the profession is a must, but a part of design education of how do you solve problems, thinking out of the box, how do you become that bridge between one discipline and another? I think that that's actually the greatest asset. I believe that that's what helped me with this transition, and that I can just understand these data scientists better and try to translate that the technicalities to the business side or the social side. So yeah, long live design education. Sorry.
That really resonates with me, because I've been thinking the past 2 years that I'm working on the things that I'm working on. I've been thinking, I wish that back in the day as a technical student, I had exposure to design, just to some basic notions. And so definitely resonates with me. I think probably with more people in the room. And I would love to see us incorporating some basic design education for our technical students. Indeed. Yeah. Let me see. Does anybody else have more questions?
I agree with that, Evgeny.
Sorry?
I fully agree with that.
Catalin, would you like to add something more?
Yeah, I just said that I fully agree with that.
Yeah. Does anybody, Catalin, do you have, by the way, any questions you would like to raise, or any more discussion points?
It was a very interesting conversation. I like it a lot. I think you're touching upon the important questions in these situations, and also in relation to industry. I find that so important, and also, wonder to what extent we can improve our education of our students to be prepared for these kind of matters and their responsibility. We give them the diploma, and we state explicitly, we point out to them also, that they have a responsibility to society to act according to what they've been taught about, of course, the technology, but also the ethics. Yeah, are they prepared? By just stating to them that they have the responsibility, can they act on it? Difficult.
Yeah, I agree completely with you. I think that perhaps adding a little bit more of this design education to all could help and could improve their perspective into not only an advice of be responsible with this degree, but also to know how to communicate with others, and also how to work together with others, and knowing how to react and how to recognize when something is not as well as expected and how to explore other fields. I think that that's absolutely necessary. What I found, these gaps are there. I think that there are not enough designers to fill in these gaps that I am finding and observing.
Yeah, and it's very much about bringing the different pieces of the puzzle together, right? I say these days, like when I talk about this, I say I don't expect computer scientists to be experts in qualitative research and conducting interviews, but I would love them, and I speak as somebody who, graduated from technical studies, I would expect myself to appreciate the importance of working together with people who can study the context and can conduct the ethnographic research and conduct the interviews and do these kind of things, because together puzzle and understand what to build.
Yep.
Any more questions? We have a couple more minutes left. So let me then. So maybe I'll finish by like a provocative question, but I want to throw it out there. I'm curious. So the data scientist, right? And that will connect to what I was saying before about that. If you think about sciences like in the more like sciences like physics, for example, and chemistry, right? Again, where we make some very explicit assumptions about the world, and then we construct the knowledge based on this. So again, this will come back to the symbolic versus correlation. So being very provocative, does the term science in the data, is it appropriate? Or are we actually talking more about, without being disrespectful or anything, is it more appropriate to talk about sort of, indeed, machine learning engineering, machine like data analyst?
That's a great question. I don't know, but I believe that what I found in the literature and around in my research, this is an ill-defined occupation, right? So calling it data analysts, calling it machine learning engineer or data scientists, the point is that what happened was statistics started to become more applied. And what that happens, perhaps you change from physics to mechanical engineering or physics to civil engineering. This might happen with statistics and you change to statistics to data science, right? The only difference is that one works with applied data, the applied world, and the other one can give the luxury of getting into more theoretical stance when you don't need actually real world data to explore what you do. So I think that it might be, depending on the etymology of the word, but I just want to say that I believe that it should be called differently than statistics. Should be more like applied, but applied statistics sounds too dull. So I think that also data scientists, the term data science and the role of data scientists might have been also with these marketing objectives behind. Because if I remember correctly, it was proposed first by Facebook and LinkedIn to describe their data analyst professionals and their groups of how they can handle data. So, and it was coined, as I told you, like 2012. So I think that is still emerging, still an ill-defined occupation, kind of like in the middle, more or less like design. You don't know what is design right nowadays. It is design for interaction, it is strategic design, business design, engineering design, product design. So I think that they are right now in the middle. The only difference is that they are under the spotlight, right? Design still behind curtains. Shouldn't be there, but well, still behind curtains a little bit. But as they are in the spotlight, they are getting a lot of attention. So I think that I align with what some of my interviewees said regarding the future of it, when they stop being the new shiny object and just recall their place. They even got this new nice phrase of like when they reach nirvana or something, and then just finally get into the position of all the other software development occupations, professions, and stop being this new shiny object, which is perhaps affecting them now. Nowadays, they're affecting more because now they already got the legitimacy that they wanted. It's a field, but now things are getting more complicated with these social ethical problems that are caused by their creations. So yeah, I hope I have answered your question.
Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, thanks very much for sharing that. So last opportunity we have for questions. Anybody?
Can I maybe respond to that?
Yeah, go ahead, Roel. Yeah.
Yeah, so because I kind of agree with a lot you're saying, Mario, but it is a very provocative question. So let me just respond to one thing you said, which is that making the analogy of physics going to mechanical engineering, statistics going to like being a more theoretical discipline, going towards data science. Let's remember that statistics is the field that is totally built on sampling procedures that are designed, that were designed to make sure that we could get as much like valuable information out of as few samples as possible. And so it's like an inherently deeply empirical kind of field. Of course, physics also has its empirical sides, but I think even more so, like statistics is really always been there to serve empirical studies. And so I think the way I look at it is that in data science recently, we've been kind of ignoring a lot of that statistical, like the thinking about data in that way, because we've often have been given like big data sets, and then we make, and I'm generalizing here, right? But like we're making assumptions that the data is fine. Let's just see what we can get out of that data. And through that, we're not actually asking a lot of really important questions about the limitations of the data that might then perhaps lead to like negative implications that we then have to solve with ethics and other design studies to clean things up, right? Like that's kind of a way that I look at it. So I think maybe we should go back actually to statistics and to understand, and that's hard, right? It's hard to build a workforce that has those kind of skills, and it will also inherently have us meet the limitations of what data science can do in especially in more sensitive domains. So I just want to respond to that. I'm curious what you think about that. And I know we're running out of time, but
well,
yeah.
I know very quickly. I think that you're right. I mean, it might be hard for them because now that they already obtained the legitimacy, but they are different from statistics. Yeah, I mean, you're right. Like going through like technicalities of what a statistic is hard for them to understand that they might still be doing statistics, right? But then I agree with you, completely agree that there's something I think that they are doing right now, touching upon that, is that they are reflecting on that topic. That's why I'm doing the PhD, and or perhaps I am assuming, but I've noticed that this reflection might have to do also with that might end up in that it can be, or no, they can just join data software engineering as part of the applied side and just leave these statistical assumptions behind. But I mean, I agree with you. I think that it's a great exercise that we just reflect and that we problematize and question why these things are the way they are. In a way, statistics is the analysis that you have made, just like physics and my example. And the point is right now is how to understand what this field might go through if you say, oh yeah, you should go to statistics again. How do they perceive their practice, which is really important, because even though if we want them to come back to statistics, they have the final word, because they are a legitimate field. Everybody in the world is looking for data scientists or people that can create artificial intelligence. But yeah, we must wonder what would happen in the future. And I will be there doing ethnography in an organization. So perhaps when I finish that third year, that nobody knows what happens there, I can just keep up and then keep telling everyone, oh, I found this, I found that. Perhaps they might go back to statistics. We don't know. Oh, I don't know yet. I need to get there.
Maria, I need to go, but thank you very much. Until we meet again.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Mario.
Thanks.
Mario, thanks very much. It's thank you very much for a really interesting talk and a really great discussion. Yeah, I think it will be great to have you come back then later on in your research, share with us what you find out down the road. So thanks very much for joining us today, and thank you everyone who participated for joining. And we see you at one of our next meetings. Stay safe.
Okay.
Thanks, Mario.
Bye.
Bye.